Good evening and welcome back. Welcome to the regular meeting of Council for May 15th, 2019. And we're starting the public portion of the meeting at 7:06 p.m. Just before we begin our public meeting, I wanted to just say a couple of quick words. We have Thomas Hansen, who's one of our newer staff members, and I've come to appreciate him very greatly in the work that he does. And Council wanted to offer our condolences publicly for the recent loss of your sister. And we also wanted to do a moment of silence to show respect. I apologize, I don't know her first name. Thomas, what is it? Joanne. We've never met her, but based on the care and the concern and how you stood by her, she must have been an incredible lady. So at this time, I'd like everyone to join us in a moment of silence for Joanne. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councillors to bring up tonight's meeting? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peterson, sorry.
Your Worship, I have an issue under AUMA resolution I ask permission to put it under urgent because we have a May 31st deadline around that.
Okay, thank you.
And then I just have a second issue to put under reports, I think would be the best place, under committee reports.
Committee reports? Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
I would just like to speak to a recognition, if I could, briefly.
And where do you see it being added?
Under 3.
Under
would
3?
work.
Okay. And that'll be coming directly from you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other items? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to mention the, with our anti-racism initiative, if you wanted to bring that up at some point.
Yes, thank you. If we could add, under 11.2, if we could add, if you want to just title it Cards for Melody, a Young Man. It's an initiative that we're definitely interested in as far as sending some condolences to the family of the young man who was killed. And do I have anything else? Administration?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. We have an item under 14 in camera, 14.2, item pertaining to FOIP Section 24. And then we also have an amendment to the agenda in regards to order.
Okay.
So we have a delegation 4.1 stars. So we would also like to move up 7.1 to be 4.2, and then 8.1 to be 4.3.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to confirm as amended. Deputy Mayor Montgomery?
I will move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Item 3, I think we'll be turning to Deputy Mayor Montgomery with a recognition.
Thank you. I would like to recognize a longtime member of the Town of Strathmore team that will be leaving us to move on to the next stage of his life, Mr. Werner Fisher. In the years that Mr. Fisher has worked for the town in several positions within the Planning and Development Department, he has diligently and professionally worked to serve our community at many times late at night after everyone else has gone home. Mr. Fisher's willingness to answer any and all questions that were posed to him or to take extra time to explain in greater detail outside of meetings demonstrated his enthusiasm for his work and has been greatly appreciated by myself and my fellow councillors. On behalf of the council and the residents of Strathmore, thank you, Werner, for all of your service to our community. Best of luck, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. And that brings us to item 4, delegations, 4.1 stars. Welcome, and if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and just a reminder that when we have a delegation, you have a 10-minute presentation time, and then there may be questions or comments following from us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glenda Farndon. I'm the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS, so I work with all municipalities and councils across the province. So I'm pleased to bring you another update. I had previously been here when it was a bit of a different council. About half of you might remember that I was here, so I'm pleased to bring you further information. Let's see. Is it? Yes. PowerPoint. Yes. Oh,
Would you
maybe
like the PowerPoint?
yes, please. I must have clicked on the wrong one.
That's no problem. This one here. Okay. F5. There we go. And you just click through.
Okay.
Yep, back and forth.
Okay, we're ready to go then. Thank you. So, STARS this coming year will be celebrating 35 years that we have been serving Albertans. And it's very important, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Albertans. So as we go forward, there's some very new and exciting things to happen, same as what has happened over the last 35 years, lots of innovation, change. So I think as we go forward, it's always important to remember where we came from. So that's where I'd like to start. This is Dr. Greg Powell. He is the STARS founder. He was the chief of emergency medicine at the Foothills Hospital. And in the early 1980s, he came across studies that showed in Alberta we have 50% higher trauma-related deaths than in any other province in Canada. Well, as a critical care physician, you can understand that this greatly disturbed him. So he set out in order to find a solution and a way for us to be saving lives in Alberta. He reached out to some of his colleagues, physicians and nurses that he worked with, as well as some key businessmen in Calgary, and together they approached the Lions of Alberta Foundation, who actually provided the significant funding to lease this helicopter you see here back in 1985, so that we actually started out as Lions Air Ambulance Service. And then the fateful day came, December 1st, 1985, for STAR's very first mission for this young lady you see here, Kelly Waldron. At that time, she was a critically ill newborn in rural southern Alberta. Little did anyone know how that particular mission was going forward, was going to radically change how critical care would be delivered to rural residents. The year to follow the day that we flew that little baby, we flew about 50 missions that year. Last fiscal year, we flew one shy of 3,000 missions across our bases. Quite a radical change over the last 34 years. Today, we are under the leadership of Andrea Robertson, our President and CEO. We have now expanded to 6 bases across 3 provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, serving 4 provinces across Western Canada, because we also serve northeastern and southeastern BC. We have 3 provincial government affiliation agreements in place. We average 8 missions per day across all those bases. 5 of those 8 missions are in Alberta alone. We have 11 helicopters in the fleet and have recently surpassed 40,000 missions flown since that first fateful day we flew that little baby. Critical care simulation training is a part of everything that our crew members take part in. It's mandatory for them to have critical care simulation training each month. We also take that on the road. Some of you may have seen the traveling motorhome that brings critical care training to the rural communities and the rural hospitals to work with your physicians and nurses. Last year, we had an opportunity to do trauma training with your Strathmore EMS. As well, we also do outreach and landing zone training and safety measures. So we were in this area as well to work with Standard, Carseland, and Gleason fire departments. There is a critical care competition, an international critical care competition each year. We host our own internal competition to allow all of our crew members to compete against each other, because only 2 are chosen every year to represent STARS internationally. We have participated in this particular competition for 16 years, and STARS has placed in the top 3 every single year they have ever competed. We have brought the cup home 6 different times, and once again last October when we won first place in the International Critical Care Competition. So that in itself is saying when we work together with all of our chain or survival partners, because it does take a team to save lives, we are bringing world-class critical care to our rural residents. Not much has changed over about the last 3 years when I last brought this budget slide to you. On the expenditure side, it continues to be 2/3 of the pie is aviation and medical components. The smaller pieces are base operations, administration costs. We still remain at 15%. CRA allows 35%, so we are doing our very best to keep that in check. On the funding side, the 20% represents our affiliation agreement we have in place with Alberta Health Services until 2020. So I can assure you we are at the highest level of government discussions right now on where that may go and what we can look forward to as the agreement is renewed. That leaves 80% for fundraising each year. 80%, about 40% of that is generated from the STARS lottery. So that is our single largest funding source, is the STARS lottery. Followed by, we do have site registration program, but that's been down the last couple of years because industry has suffered some many challenges over the last couple of years, and that program is largely used by industry. So when they haven't been busy in the field, there's less sites to be registered. And of course, the calendar campaign seems to hold its own at a little over $1 million every year. People say that, it's going to be, maybe they will be phased out because people don't really use calendars anymore, but calendar seems to hold its own. People want to support and they want to read those patient stories. So in the end, that's still, after all of that is said and done, it leaves us roughly just over $17 million a year to be generated by our community events, our individual support, our corporate sector, and our municipalities that are part of the Municipal Initiative Program. So I wanted to bring, we all travel, we all go into neighboring municipalities as well, so it's really important that we have an idea of what's actually going on around us in our immediate area. And so I brought you the statistics for Wheatland County as of the end of April, showing you that we already had 9 missions within Wheatland County. You can see that Strathmore, your hospital, as well as immediate scene calls within the immediate Strathmore area is your high volume areas. So that is where the majority of all of the STARS missions are flown. These are only missions that STARS actually flew the patient. There's lots of other missions that we respond to. Maybe there's been a change, maybe we've been turned around because it's not medically required. There's lots of different areas where we've responded to a lot of other calls. But if we did not fly the patient, it is not reported here. So that would be a discrepancy if you have a larger volume of calls reported to you from your fire and services. When we're talking, over these last 5 years, if we took an annual average over the 5 years, then we would see a yearly average of about 16 missions per year. When we're talking mission-related costs only, that represents well over $150,000 in services. We have had challenges and deliberated for many, many years over when would the fateful day come that we would have to tackle capital campaign. And the day was here. We suffered a few challenges last year where we've recognized that the BK-117s are end of life. They've been a workhorse for us, served us well for almost 35 years, but they've been phased out of production. So in order to go forward now, we got board approval and we purchased 3 Airbus H-145s. It is the big sister to the BK-117. It's very much a workhorse. You can see it's very similar in shape and size, just a new style tail rotor. They come at a cost of $13 million per helicopter. The original plan was to build the fleet one at a time. As we would raise the money, then we would buy another helicopter. So the original goal is to downsize a little bit to 9 helicopters in total for the fleet that serves Western Canada. So that's a $117 million capital campaign. 5 to be located in Alberta, 1 at every base, plus 2 backups to be rotated between those 3 bases. 3 in Saskatchewan and 1 in Manitoba. And then the extra one they would rotate back and forth as a backup between Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And then the future all of a sudden became much brighter. In December of last year, Saskatchewan government not only signed a 10-year affiliation agreement with STARS at 50% government funding, but they also approved that they would pay for 1 helicopter for Saskatchewan at $13 million. In March, Alberta Health Services announced that they would follow and they would pay for 1 helicopter in Alberta as well. So, and we still have that affiliation agreement in place until 2020 at the 20% government funding. And then the federal government floored us. We've always been recognized as a provincial service. Now that we are providing services across Western Canada, they made an announcement for a grant for $65 million to purchase 5 helicopters to serve Western Canada. So what we originally had as a $117 million capital campaign has now turned into a $26 million capital campaign. So we are still in campaign mode. We still need to reach out to all of our supporters for sustainability of operations on a yearly basis, because we will also be still tackling capital campaign. So we want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate this opportunity to bring you further information. We appreciate that you have a commitment to safety and excellence for your residents and for your area. We appreciate the fact that together we can bring quality of life to your residents. We'd like to ask you to continue to recognize STARS as a part of protective services. We are an asset for your residents. Together, we've seen positive results. We have seen lives saved. But we must start to work together more closely, because we should need to protect and preserve STARS for our future generations. With new helicopters coming, we can be looking to the next 40 or more years again. So we need all of us together to continue to make sure that we are joined for the fight for life. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I think we all agree that STARS is an amazing group that has done so much to save so many lives and bring medical care when it's urgently needed. And I just had a meeting this afternoon, and we did approve $14,000 for 2019, so that was good news that we were able to get out to our public too. So I think we might have some
Thank
questions or comments from councillors. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. I appreciate the report. I know that there has been talk in the past that there is a possibility that Alberta government would at some point consider STARS a part of their health rollout through Alberta Health Services. Do you hear any talk about that or movement from municipalities to bring that maybe to the AUMA, to the Annual Representative Assembly?
I haven't heard yet, but I have been looking for opportunities to maybe reach out and maybe bring, collectively a presentation. I have worked in the past with, when it was previously AAMDC and now the RMA. That is where we were able to kind of build this municipal initiative program where municipalities would help support on either a dollar value per year within their emergency protective services budgets, or some for the smaller areas are on a per capita basis.
I think it would be really interesting moving forward to look at a model exactly like that. And we have the person in our community who, working with our protective services, who has all kinds of creative ideas around those sorts of models. But I'd also like to see how coming together as community through both the rural and the urban and suburban to look at a lobby movement to the provincial government to secure more funding, more secure funding, sustainable funding through tax-funded benefit. And the other thing, Your Worship, I would be prepared to make a motion to move the same amount so that we ensure that we put it into the 2020 budget as well for next year, if that's appropriate.
Just as a clarification to administration, to Mr. Teedy, is that something that we can make a motion as to put it as a line item for the next budget year?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, that sounds great. Councillor Peterson then?
Your Worship, I would move that Strathmore Town Council provide the same amount of funding in the amount of $14,000, I believe it was, on the 2020 budget line to support STARS Air Ambulance with...
Just for clarification, sorry, thanks, Councillor Peterson. Mr. Teedy, was it 14 or was it 16, do you know?
It was 14.
14, okay.
in my recollection.
So is there any discussion or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? So that motion is carried. So that gives a little more certainty as we go into the next budget year that there'll be definitely the same amount of funding of 14,000
Yes.
provided to STARS for next year too.
Thank you so very much. You are a part of the municipal initiative, and there is a solid leadership within this area and Wheatland County and all of the boundaries, within the boundaries now. So we appreciate that so much. And going forward, we currently have 90% of all Alberta rural municipalities across Alberta are supportive, including a very large amount of within northeastern BC. So that's starting a movement in itself. Together, we are currently generating on an annual basis of just under $2 million per year. So we're very grateful to you because that is providing that sustainability piece that we so need.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you so much for your presentation and for coming today. It's really meaningful for people such as yourselves to come and share these statistics with us, because then we get to share them with our community. And so what I'm going to take away from this is the statistics that you've shared for Wheatland County and Strathmore. Share that with my social media and hopefully get you closer to your goal of raising that $26 million.
Thank you.
And how close are you right now? Where are you at?
We've just now started the capital campaign. So with all this information that came from the government entities, I've in some of my presentations to other municipalities, they have said that once the government is showing that they will do something, then there will be other municipalities that said that, if they have the opportunity, that they will also maybe do a one-time gift to be a part of that as well. So going forward, I will, in the fall, have a lot more information for you as well, where we stand.
Thank you and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, I'm sure you know our Director of Protective Services, Trent West. One of the things that I think that's a wonderful initiative that's happening in this community, and I think it lends itself well to an organization like STARS into the future, and that is creating that sustainability for future populations in this community under Director West's capable leadership. We have a youth camp now, a protective services youth camp, for lack of a better word. 3 different age groups that are doing this, and if at some point STARS were a part of that, that would be a magnificent thing to also build that human capacity, sustainability into that program. And I just want to thank you for all you do. I appreciate it.
Certainly. I will leave my card with you, and maybe we can look at some opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Once again, on behalf of council, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your presentation, and we're glad we could give you some stability as you look forward to. You can count on our funding for the next year as well.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And that brings us to item 4.2, the 2018 draft audited financial statements. We have a representative from the audit company that's going to make a brief presentation. Just before the presentation, I just want to point out to the public who are here, as well as those who are glued to their computer screens, that the presentation in public may be a little more brief than you might expect, but we've had the presentation come to our audit committee already. We've also had it come in camera preceding this public meeting, so this will be the 3rd presentation that many of us have gone through, and we're quite confident in how things are going. So. Yes, and the other thing that I just want to clarify for the public at home and here is that we are looking to approve the actual report or the audit of the financial statements. So it's slightly different than the actual finances that were approved before. This is to approve the audit of our financial statements. So welcome again, and if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for our public who are watching.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Darren Adamson. I'm a partner with Avail CPA. And we recently finished our audit of the financial statements. In quite a bit of detail with the audit committee and also with the members of council. So I'll just stick to the highlights. Page 1 is the independent auditor's report, or page 1 and 2. I won't go through the entire report. I'll just point out the auditor's opinion is the important part there. In our opinion, these financial statements do fairly represent the results of operations of the town of Strathmore for the year ended December 31st. So we did whatever audit procedures we needed to do. We satisfied ourselves that these statements are fairly stated in all material respects. So no surprises on the auditor's report. If we look in the actual statements themselves, page 4 is the consolidated statement of financial position. So this shows us the assets, liabilities, and accumulated surplus as of December 31st. So some of the highlights, we can see financial assets at the top went down from about 29.4 million to about 22.2 million this year. So we're down, and the big change there is investments are down about just under 6 million. And the reason they're down is the funding that was in investments has been withdrawn and invested in the tangible capital assets. So the town increased its tangible capital assets, and some of that was funded with the investments. The liabilities of the town as of December 31st are about 20.6 million compared to last year's 22.8 million. So liabilities are down. The biggest change there is long-term debt. The scheduled principal and interest payments of all the town's debentures were made as scheduled, so no surprises. Our long-term debt is down to basically to where we knew it would be. And our other liabilities are all fairly comparable to last year. So that brings us to our subtotal net financial assets, and that is about 1.6 million this year compared to last year's about 6.6 million. So our net financial asset position has gone down about 5 million. And again, the reason it's gone down is because the town has invested significantly into its capital assets. So as we move down to non-financial assets, we can see those went up from about 188 million to about 199 million. And of course, I'm rounding these off, so but I'm keeping it very, very high level. So capital assets went up about almost $11 million in total for two reasons, I guess. There was about 16 million of total additions, which were quite a few different projects, but some of the more significant ones were the field house, various engineering structure, so road work, utilities, bridge work, machinery and equipment purchases, that kind of thing. So that was about 16.2 million. And then we amortize or expense those assets over their expected useful life. And this year we amortized a little under 5 million. So overall, our capital assets went up by about 11. So when those are added in, we get to our total accumulated surplus of $200.8 million. So that number would be the total excesses of revenues over expenses since the beginning of the town 115 years ago, or however long the town's been in existence. That $200.8 million accumulated surplus, though, it's very important to know the breakdown of that. And if you look at note 9, it shows the breakdown. And that shows that out of the $200.8 million, $188 million has been invested in capital assets. So the town still has the assets and has the service potential of those assets, but it's not spendable surplus. The remainder, about $12.7 million, is either unrestricted or it's in specific reserves that are earmarked for specific purposes. So about 12.7 million of the 200.8 million is spendable surplus, and that's available to cover all future expenses of the town. When we look at the next page, we'll see that the annual revenues and expenses of the town are somewhere in the $30 million range. So the spendable surplus that the town has as of the end of the year is not quite, just a little bit more than a third of a year of revenues and expenses. So it's a pretty good place to be. It's not excessive, but I think it's a solid position. The next page I'd like to cover is, as far as highlights, is the statement of operations for the year ended December 31st. So here we're going to compare our revenues and our expenses to not only to the previous year, but we'll also compare to the budget. If we look at our revenues, this year, 27.4 million in total, very, very comparable to the budget of 27.1 million. So revenues largely came in as expected. Taxes went up a little bit, about just under 700,000. User fees are up about $1 million, largely in the water service, sewer and garbage areas. And other revenues really are, it's kind of a no surprise financial statement for that end. So everything is fairly comparable to last year and to budget. When we look at the expenses, this year came in at 31.6 million compared to last year's 28.3 million. So our expenses are up about 3.3 million. And again, most of that was budgeted for. Expenses are about 926,000 higher than budget, but fairly close on a $31 million budget. We're fairly close. There were really three areas that were up over last year, and that's administration is up a bit, transportation is up a bit, and parks and recreation is up. And for the most part, those are up because of increased staffing and increased contracted services. Some of the specifics would be in the software and computer costs, records management and communications, some additional staffing positions in the different areas, and additional contracted services. So overall, our expenses, again, 31.6 million. So that leaves us with our subtotal excess of revenue over expenses from an operational standpoint of a deficit of 4.2 million. The budget was 3.6 million deficit. So we're about $600,000 off the budget on an operational net number, but overall that's pretty close. Then we add in our government transfers for capital and the contributed assets. So this is the funding and the contributed capital assets that out of our $16 million total capital asset additions for the year, 10 million of it is funded by grants or by contributions from the developers. So that leaves the other 6 million that was funded by operations. So when those revenues are added in, it brings us to a total surplus for the year of about 5.8 million compared to last year's 5.3 million. So from a total bottom line perspective, we're very close to last year and very close to budget as well. The remainder of the financial statements gives additional detail and more explanations and more of the specifics of these same numbers. But from a a highlight perspective, that's what I really wanted to highlight. Overall, operational results came in very close to as was budgeted, and the capital projects as well. So I think another good year from that standpoint. So that's what I have for highlights. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for your presentation again. Are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation. Deputy Mayor Montgomery?
I will move the council accept the 2018 audited financial statements as presented by Mr. Darren Adamson of Avail LLP Chartered Professional Accountants, and authorize 2 members of council to sign the financial statements. Mr. Adamson will also present the management letter and indicators of financial condition.
Thank you for that. You've all heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. And Ms. Sawatsky, is this the time we'll take a quick recess to sign the documents? Okay, thank you. So you have a motion to take a quick recess?
I'll
Thank you,
move we
Cal-
take a recess.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Montgomery made a quick motion. There's no vote on a motion for recess, so we'll take a quick couple of minutes just to sign the documents. And we're back in session. So we've finished that item as far as the audited financial statements go, which brings us to item 4.3, Downtown Vitalization Focus Group Update. Cameron, are you speaking on that? Oh, okay, thank you.
Paper copies of the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good job, guys. That was fast.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Fuel and members of council. This evening, the Downtown Vitalization Focus Group would like to present a set of recommendations for council's consideration. With me tonight is Lindsay Derozero to present on behalf of the group. Lindsay is currently serving as chair to the focus group. Alexandra, as well as myself, will be available from administration should council have any questions. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lindsay to the stand to present on behalf of the group. Oh, yeah. This one here. I think the PDF is probably better.
That's better, okay.
Yeah.
Fire that up and we'll throw it up to the second screen.
If it's working.
It might take a bit.
Oh, shoot, okay. View, full page, full screen.
See if it'll go full screen.
Okay.
Wait, oh, okay, actually, sorry. We have to drag it up there.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, Your Worship and council members, for having me here today. I'm excited to present what we have been working on. As you know, we recently adopted new terms of reference and have kind of had a shift and change from a committee to a focus group. So we're really excited for these new terms of reference, and we have a real good focus. And I think we're moving forward and making really positive steps in our focus group. So we meet once a month. And we've been meeting in our new group since January of 2019. And so what we've been tasked to do is do research and provide recommendations. And we have 6 different functions that I will present to you today, as well as the recommendations. And this is just a high-level report since we've just started working on this. We'll be coming back and presenting again in September with a more detailed report. So the first thing that we did as a focus group is we completed a survey on SurveyMonkey to identify kind of what the focus group sees as our top priorities and new projects, upgrades that we see as viable options for downtown, as well as funding possibilities. And you can see in that picture, that good-looking group of people there is our focus group. Not everybody is represented there, but this was on a walkabout that we did yesterday in downtown. All right, so function number 1. So this was the economic development initiatives with direct benefit to downtown Strathmore. So we found this function to be quite broad, and we weren't quite sure how to come about it. So we feel now with our brand new economic development officer that it would be appropriate to retire this function in our terms of reference and hand it over to our economics development officer, and that we would be there to get feedback, and she would inform us about different initiatives that directly affect the downtown for economic development. So our second one, and this one I'm quite excited about. This one is potential community events that will enhance downtown Strathmore. So we recognize that downtown puts on lots of amazing events in Strathmore, and my family and I have attended a lot of them. But something we identified is that a lot of the events are created specifically for members of Strathmore, which is great, but we really want to start encouraging people from outside communities to come in and participate in some of our amazing events and see our wonderful downtown and what a great community it is. So we're thinking that this s'more event would attract people from outside communities to come to Strathmore, as well as another thing that we have heard from some of the businesses downtown, that some of the events that have been going on in downtown don't directly benefit the downtown businesses because they bring in outside vendors. So we think that this event would directly benefit the downtown businesses, as well as create more people coming into Strathmore. So we'll have a more detailed report on this event and what it would look like in September. So potential art initiatives in downtown Strathmore. So we would really like council to direct administration to draft up a public art policy, which would include funding options. So we noticed that something that downtown Strathmore is lacking is having art installations around downtown. We think this would bring a lot of culture, a lot of color into downtown, visual interest. As well as we have so many great artists in the community that they could showcase their art in the downtown core and bring more people in to see the art in downtown. So what we did yesterday on our walkabout was we started to identify some spots around downtown where we think would make a good place for these different arts, and as well talked about maybe even incorporating some functional art into downtown. For example, the benches or the bike rack, something that you can actually go and use, but is also aesthetically pleasing, and yeah. And we will also be coming back and talking more about this in our report in September. So number 4 is the potential downtown enhancement projects, including but not limited to business facade improvement programs, infrastructure projects, and branding and aesthetic elements. So this was another thing that we were identifying when we were on our walkabout yesterday. And our recommendation is for council to direct administration to continue to pursue a facade improvement and branding project. So another thing that we noticed, a lot of the buildings downtown are starting to look a little bit dated, need some improvements to the outside, as well as a lot of the elements of downtown are kind of discombobulated. We have benches. We noticed on one corner there's 4 different types of benches just on one street corner, as well as their different pots, potted plants in different areas. So we think that branding is really important so that we can kind of bring downtown all together in one cohesive area, and we think that it would look much better that way. And that we would also like to recommend that council support the Western District Historical Society. One of the members on the focus group also sits on the Historical Society, and to develop a self-guided historical walk through Strathmore tool. So when we were doing our walkabout yesterday, we noticed there's some amazing buildings down there, one of them being the original firewall that's part of the theater. And nobody really knows the history behind that, as well as there's a number of other buildings around downtown that are original, that we would think bring some history into downtown, and identify this through signs and stories and bring that into downtown. And for the Western District Historical Society to lead that, and as well as fund those projects. So function number 5, identify areas of the downtown for potential development, beautification, and enhancement. This was our main focus on our walkabout yesterday. So we would like to direct council recommend council direct administration to host an educational workshop that will engage downtown businesses to learn about the importance of the improvements, curb appeal. We noticed that there are a lot of areas that could be beautified, as well as maybe have been a little bit neglected in the past, where we could incorporate flowers, maybe community gardens into different spaces, as well as maybe put little nice sitting areas with lights. And then next to the gym, there's an area that's kind of being wasted right now. It could be really beautified and put benches in there and flowers, and really dress up the downtown and make it aesthetically pleasing. And so the last function is development of a business recognition program for businesses who make significant contributions to downtown vitalization. So last year, one thing that the committee did was we recognized Back to Good for their contributions to the downtown businesses, as well as the add-on that they did on the front step to add a little seating area, and just adding to the overall aesthetic look of the downtown. We really wanted to recognize them for this, and we think that this should continue. And we would like to recommend to council to direct administration to hand this over to the Chamber of Commerce to host a Best in Business Awards event, and to include the Best of Downtown Business Award in their overall event. Yeah. So what we're looking for is just approval on the recommendations that we put forth, and that we will be coming back to provide you with more details in September.
Thank you very much for your report, and thank you for your volunteerism and your efforts and energy being on that committee too. Even though I didn't know what I was doing at your walk yesterday, I went thinking it was the heel walk, and I wound up doing a downtown walk around, just kind of shuffling along.
Just a week ahead.
Yeah, but it was good. It gave me a chance to see some of the buildings up close and personal. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo your thanks. And in terms of the public art policy, I think that initially when the Strathmore Regional Arts Cooperative was in existence, there was a hope that we could bring that group together under a public art policy process. So I know that our legislative services did significant amount of work in that area. And so they do have what I think is a really good start on that policy process. And I think it wouldn't take very much to, and there was public consultation in that as well, and it's about 1.5 years old, I think. Am I correct?
You're correct, Your Worship. There is a public arts policy in place that council approved. It was a couple of years ago, but we can definitely share that with the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, and thanks, Jen.
And then second to that, WDHS has a self-guided tour. It has been highlighted on CBC Radio. It's been published provincially, and it is on a very, very widely used and well-known app called On the Spot. WDHS funded it. So anyone who wants to download it, the download is free. It isn't in all areas. On the Spot is an app that has covered Victoria, downtown Vancouver, San Francisco, and Strathmore. And there are 3 walking tours in this community. They're extremely well done. Later on in this meeting, I'll be asking for some additional support relative to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Peterson. You're good, Councillor
Yeah, I was
Corbeil?
gonna
Okay,
speak on
thank you.
that. Actually,
Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Corbeil. Now it's Councillor Bauer.
oh, sorry, it didn't really matter. I have a quick question, actually, and maybe this is to Councillor Sobel. Would the Chamber of Commerce want to do, like, almost that education about downtown improvement curb appeal? Like, would that be something that they would do, or would that be us? It says guide administration, I was just kind of curious.
Well, I don't have an answer for that. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that that would be them. That raises the question of the other one that I was going to ask in regards to the Best in Business Awards, because the Chamber actually partners with the Newsy Neighbor Awards. So I had a question as to whether or not these were motions, or recommendations to be implemented immediately, or are we waiting for the September report? But one way or another, it'll all get figured out. But I don't see at this point the Chamber doing their own awards, not when we've just worked a year at trying to partner with the News Neighbor rather than, and it was a successful awards show. But for that category, I think it's a great idea, and I would certainly have no problem, I think, recommending that the Chamber include that.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. I see in the recommendations it talks about directing administration to host an educational workshop. So is that something we want to adjust when it comes time for motions? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Alexandra.
Sorry, Your Worship and Council, I just want to elaborate a little bit on the Chamber Awards, because I had a conversation with the Chamber chair at this point, and I also had a conversation with the Newsy Neighbor about the event, and administration is supposed to be just a conduit between the two and just discuss if that would be an opportunity to actually for the Chamber to host another event and maybe separate the events, have 2 events that are specific to Strathmore and the district. And the Newsy Neighbor going more elaborate on, because there were about 90 categories, and I think that could be could be condensed, and the chamber taking over more of the business awards parts again, and having a fundraising event as well for their own. So that's the background story a little bit, and we're still working on this and seeing where this is going.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to commend Lindsay. Not only have you taken on the position of being the chair for the Downtown Vitalization Focus Group, but you've also brought your own little flair to this. And this report is very much, it really shows who you are too, and how you're trying to help to guide us in the group. I love what you said to me last night. You said, we've been meeting with the Downtown Vitalization Committee in the boardroom for the last few years, and we've never actually gone downtown Strathmore and walked the pavement to see what we could improve. And I just really commend you on taking us outside of the boardroom and actually going downtown and walking. And it was such a valuable experience last night to see everything up close. I've never looked with that lens before at facades and about paint and public space and where we could put the pocket parks and where we could add lights and how the lighting on Second and Third, it actually matches already in some spaces, and how we can just improve things. So I was really excited when I went home last night, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for bringing these things forward to us. Oh, and I would like to perhaps make an amendment that just to the recommendations, rather than council supporting the Western District Historical Society in developing a self-guided historical walk through downtown, I would like to know if you would be willing to allow me to amend that to just develop historical signage throughout downtown, because we already have the on-the-spot app, as Councillor Peterson just mentioned. Would you?
Did you want to respond to that? Thomas.
Your Worship, members of council, I just want to speak to the recommendation with regards to administration hosting the workshop for the downtown design. That actually aligns, that recommendation now would align with council's previous direction to administration to do a downtown visualization along with Highway 1 beautification. It also allows for some efficiencies because we are already engaging consultants that do that kind of work. So we would only expand the scope slightly. So just to provide some context in terms of that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for that. Councillor Peterson.
That's all I was going to say, is that initiative is already underway, so it might not need the amendment, yeah.
So just a procedural question to Jennifer then. When we look at this motion coming forward as far as recommendations, we're just going to amend the wording of that very last one? The fourth one? There are others? It doesn't need it now, okay. So the other ones are all fine then as well?
I'm not really on my phone, I'm just taking notes because my computer's broken.
I understand, that's good. Councillor Bauer.
I'm ready to make a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer.
I would like to move that council instruct administration to bring forward amendments to the procedural bylaw in order to retire function number 1 in the Downtown Vitalization Focus Group's terms of references, and that the council direct the Downtown Vitalization Focus Group to report back in September with details on hosting a s'mores festival and adopting a public art policy, and that council direct administration to host an educational workshop, pursue a facade improvement and branding initiative, and to act as a conduit with the Chamber of Commerce to discuss hosting downtown business awards events. And further, that council support the Western District Historical Society in developing a self-guided historical walk throughout downtown.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bauer. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Corbeil?
I believe thank you, Your Worship, I believe we already have a public art policy.
So then we're looking at a friendly amendment to...
And we have the walking tour too.
And we have the walking tour already, so can we have a friendly amendment then to drop the part about adopting a public art policy?
We do need to look at a mural policy.
Oh, a mural policy,
It was
okay.
a mural, it wasn't a public art policy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Kevin, can you help clarify that?
But wouldn't you just amend the current public?
Is that okay? Just amend it to public? Okay, then that should work.
So then how would we need to adjust that wording then, Jennifer? Oh, you're just checking on that? Thank you.
Your worship, you would, so the second part of the motion, that council direct the Downtown Vitalization Focus Group to report back in September with details on hosting a s'mores festival and amend the public arts policy to include the provision for murals in the downtown. And then
Councillor Bauer, you're okay with that friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
Does that need to come from a councillor? Jennifer, I know you've got the wording there, but we're okay?
Your worship, Councillor Bauer could approve the suggested recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And then the last part, as far as the self-guided historical walk, do we need to clean that up a bit?
I mean, they're already developing it, right? So we're just.
It's already done.
We're supporting them.
We're just supporting it then?
They're
Okay,
developing it further, aren't they?
that makes sense, I guess.
Are they doing it further?
What's that?
The walking?
The walking tour is constantly updated, like, it's a phenomenal walking tour.
Yeah, so I would say they're developing it.
It is developed,
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so it's done.
and it is developed, and it's developed, sorry, your worship, it's developed in the sense that it continues to be updated from time to time, so there's all kinds of capacity to add to it, but the downtown walking tour is, not only do they have 3 walking tours in the community, but the 2 that are in the downtown are detailed, heavily detailed, and they contain 3 different layers of information. So there's an initial layer, that is the pictorial layer, then there's accessible information on the site, and then you can delve deeper if you want to go into the sites that are added to that as well.
So my question then is, would we drop that 4th recommendation coming forward then, since it's already in place?
Councillor Bauer had an excellent idea.
Okay.
In addition to that, which was to change that and put in signage instead. So I think that would be, that's really valuable.
Communities in Bloom? Yes.
Yeah, that's really valuable. That's what she said anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just I'll reread that last part then.
Except that Thomas's initiative
Yes.
includes that.
Yes.
So we don't really need that part at all about Western District. Because I think Thomas's initiative and what Chuck is working on, what Mr. Proctor's working on, is already inclusive of that.
So I will just take that.
I think so. Would you say so?
Worship, Councillor, yes, absolutely. I think that we've got this covered under other discrete initiatives.
So we were wanting to incorporate the app as well on the signage, so that people know that they can access it.
And that's in that report.
Mhm. Okay.
So I'm a little confused. How are we wording that 4th one then?
We're just dropping it.
Are we dropping it in total? Okay, thank you. Alexandra, I saw you did you want to weigh in on anything with a comment in that last part?
It was just support from council to ask for support because the Western Historic Society is sitting at the table and they were talking about this app that goes directly on there. They're funding it and they're developing something that is furthers or expands on this historic part. Is all the support, there's nothing really required from council per se.
Perfect, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for the 3 recommendations then. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you again for your presentation and your time on this committee and for letting me shuffle around with you yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that brings us to Section 5, Item 5, Confirmation of Minutes, 5.1, the adoption of the May 1st, 2019 regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Corbeil. Sorry, Jennifer?
Your worship, thank you. Just a slight error that administration has noticed in the minutes on page, sorry, I might, it's under the committee reports from council in regard to the tourism committee. There's just a wrong date in there. It should read May 28th, not May 29th.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council adopt the regular council meeting minutes for May 1st, 2019 as amended.
Thank you very much for that. You've all heard the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And the motion is carried. There are no tabled items that I am aware of. Items for administration. And the first one is proclamation of Public Works Week. Craig, you're coming forward for that one? Welcome this evening.
Good evening, Council. The two ladies behind me, Melissa and Jaden, are our backbone of the Public Works Department and the Parks Department as well, the whole operations. So I'm actually going to turn the floor over to them to ask for the proclamation.
Welcome, ladies.
When Jaden and I started with the operations department in September 2018, neither of us really understood what public works entailed. We knew that the town was responsible for snow plowing in the winter and had a parks crew in the summer. But we had no idea how important the roles that we were stepping into really were. Our team is the reason Strathmore can sustain growth and innovation, mobility and transportation, and a healthy community environment.
We want to share and educate our community about the role our Public Works Department plays in providing quality life here in Strathmore, which is why we are here today to ask you to proclaim May 19th to 25th National Public Works Week. During this week, we'd like to work with communications to offer our community education and highlight keys and activities for the program that Public Works participates. We also will be holding our Equipment in the Park night, May 25th at Kinsman Park from 12 to 3 p.m., which will feature all of our equipment on display, kid-friendly activities, and park representatives. And we'd also like to hold a contest for all the kids to name our new international dump truck that we just purchased earlier this year.
We appreciate your time and consideration today, and on behalf of the Operations Department, I would like to extend an invitation to Council to attend a tour of the Operations Building located at 132 Orchard Way in recognition of Public Works Week on May 24th from 2 to 3 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Are there any questions from Council for the young ladies from Operations? Seeing none? Yes, that would be awesome. Councillor Sobel.
Actually,
I've talked a lot.
never. I was just trying to come up with a wording of how nice this presentation was, but I didn't want to insult anyone. But you guys are welcome back anytime. Well done. I really appreciate the comments and the way it was delivered. And I'm so happy to see the enthusiasm you have for our great department, because we value public works, that's for sure. So I would move, Your Worship, that Council proclaim May 19th, 25th, 2019 as Public Works Week.
Thank you very much for that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. And once again, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your work that you'll be doing with getting that week off the ground and running. And we really appreciate the invitation to come down to the operations facility on that May 24th date. We'd love to be there. I know many of us will try to get there if we're able to, but thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you. Thanks again. And that brings us to 7.3, Summer Camps 2019. And Aya, is it? Sorry, Aya?
It's Aya, Your
Aya,
Worship.
thank you. I got it right the first time. Welcome this evening, and you'll be presenting on this and walking us through the slideshow. Did they just high five up there? That's awesome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. For tonight, I'll be providing an update about our summer camps and its operations for 2019. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce two new staff members. I have Dean Raleigh, and Fiona Gibson-Smith, who are 2 summer camp coordinators that will be working closely with our existing staff and developing some really fun things for the summer. So the goal of our summer camps is to meet the needs of children in attendance. We really want to focus on an outdoor adventure, STEM-driven model for kids in the camp. And this will allow the kids to have opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily be able to have if they're just staying at home for the summer. So some weekly themes that we have, I'll outline for you. We'll be focusing on STEM activities in which participants will be engaged in active learning, creating out and testing out new ideas, enhance physical literacy skills through the development of confidence and competence in their abilities, and providing new opportunities to children who may not otherwise have them. So for example, we have outdoor adventures where the kids are going to be getting dirty, getting back to those old-fashioned days where we're, like I said, getting dirty and down in, I'll use all the different facilities in town, local parks, so it'll be a real good tour of Strathmore this summer. Mad Science is another theme that we're looking at for the summer, so the kids are able to test out new ideas and look at innovation and different ways to create. A third one that I'd like to highlight is our Superhero Week. So we'll be looking at their own inner superheroes, so it'll be really self-motivating for a lot of the kids and building that confidence. We'll also be looking to our local heroes as well, such as the fire department and EMS and RCMP. And the director of infrastructure, yes. So we have some very inclusive outcomes for the summer camps. So we're looking at keeping those kids connected, keeping them engaged in the community, but also being able to look outside of the community. What other opportunities are there for them to engage in? And that's going to look like active living, participation, being included with other children, and also connecting them to nature and really getting them to respect what nature is. And as they grow up, they'll learn more about that, about the preservation of our beautiful earth. We'll also be continuing to give back to the community through targeted projects, such as thanking first responders, as we have done in the past, as well as contributing to local children's charities. We have divided summer camps into 3 age groups. So we have, kindergarten to grade 3, grade 4 to grade 6, and grade 7 to 9. And the purpose of this division is to meet the unique developmental needs of each age group. The success of the program will be measured through surveys distributed to parents, children, and staff, and anecdotal feedback. And this data collected will allow us to understand the needs of the families, needs of the children, also to understand what challenges we had, but where we excelled as well throughout the summer. So camp fees, we've set them out to be affordable to families. For those in financial need, we have established a subsidy program. And that comes from funding from United Way grant, the Brett Wilson grant, as well as the Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign. And this will ensure that summer camp is accessible to all children and youth within the community who apply. Through research and best practice, subsidy rates have been set as a combination of Statistic Canada's low-income cutoff rates, as well as Alberta Children's Services childcare subsidy program. So we are able to meet in the middle about what we can offer to families. We've also partnered with the Strathmore Fire Department in a joint effort to ensure subsidies can be applied to all town of Strathmore summer camps. So the role of the hub is to support families with the subsidy process, not just with our summer camps, but also the fire department. And we'll be working closely with them to achieve that. So I thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions or comments at this time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sobel?
Just a brief question. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to assume that there's going to be some advertising on this. When do you expect that to start, or is there anything anywhere yet?
Absolutely. We've started with social media platforms. We've been in the Newsy Neighbor, the Times paper. We've distributed posters to schools as well.
Anything on our website?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just looking at the fees, and that's per kid. There's no family rate, right?
So that's something that we're looking into as we're getting those requests from families at this point. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm assuming, have people started to sign up?
Absolutely.
I figured.
Yeah, we're about quarter full for each week of camp right now. So.
Last thing, actually, what are the hours?
So we'll be running camps 8 to 6. This year, we're able to provide pre and post care at no additional cost to the families as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corbeil. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for your report and presentation. And I'm just impressed with the hours of operation. 8 to 6 is a very long time, and it really is helpful to the parents. And with the price and the payment options, and the fact that you're considering family options, it's something that's really good for a section of our population that it's really important to. So
Absolutely.
much appreciated.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
At this time, we're going to take a quick recess, just a really quick break. I apologize for another one, but council stepping up. I call the meeting back to order, and we apologize to people who are on the edge of their seats at home waiting for us to resume. So we are back, and that brings us to 7.4, the Protective Services Summer Camp Update with Mr. Trent West. Welcome, Mr. West.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Patty Allen extends her apologies. She's not able to make it tonight, so I will be presenting on her behalf. It's our pleasure and privilege to present Council with the information in your package with regard to 2019 summer camps. Please keep in mind that the information, the schedule and the information are very fluid. It's based on resources and availability. They're mostly designed to be able to posterize the information and to attract the youth or the kids or the cadets to the camps, and identifying specifically what it is that we're trying to offer or will be offering during that period of time. So those things will move around. A couple other things that are very fluid is our engagement with the two school divisions, and also health, not AHS health unit health, because we feed those kids. And so we've got some things that we need to address this year to be able to continue to provide that camp-like feature for the kids. As A had mentioned, this year was a tremendous opportunity for all camp programming to come together, and for a lot of talent to begin to work to create some synergies and also similarities as far as our camps are concerned. We do have a little bit of divergence when it comes to the funding and the costs. I should say the costs, not the funding, because we do have access now with our camps to that same subsidy model that A is running through the hub to also support our camps. Although you'll see we're charging $100 for a 4-day program, and the other programs, which are far better and not better, but have far more experienced people doing them, are providing from the hub. I could say that Protective Services is so excited that we've really taken it upon ourselves to go out and get high five training, and it's training to help people who interact with children to be able to understand and provide a better learning environment at different age groups. So Protective Services is going to actively pursue us having everyone that's going to be involved in any type of youth adventures, whether it's summer camps or school tours or going to schools and engaging with kids. We want to all be high five certified. Council, at this time, I wish to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your presentation, Trent, and we'll go to Councillor Corbeil first.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I'm assuming,
That is
Poster?
the lead information for you as council. We've developed individual posters for each age group so that they can be posted differently and in different locations.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because there's no cost, and I think that would be one of the things
Correct.
on there, but no, as long as it's not for everybody, that's all good. It's a great camp, and I know all the kids probably look forward to it, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Trent. I was going through the budget numbers and I noticed that they don't quite add up. So, like, are we underfunding these camps? Should we be giving more?
No, I don't think so, Councillor. I mean, we took our best shot at some of the budget numbers as far as our fixed costs and our variable costs. And if you look at, there's some camps that are going to be we're not going to bring in as much as it's going to cost, and there's others that are going to make a couple of bucks, and I don't mean lots and lots, I mean $150. There'll be some offsetting with the grant funding and or subsidizing availabilities. We have those opportunities, so we will be able to provide you with something with exact figures after the camps. but I think that, the biggest number in there is wages, and we shot high based on the number of personnel that we had last year and the amount of work that it was for a bunch of us that were really trained to do that. And I don't think that we're going to be nearly that high as far as staffing costs are going to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're gonna still be able to bring as many kids as you can in. And,
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I only have a feedback thing, and this is only purely on a visual, from a visual perspective, as a visual learner. I would prefer, rather than the orange in the center for summer camp, that you really go with either your emblem being embossed in the background of the words, or you do it in red, because this is specifically a fire camp. Like it's geared towards that, and so to bring in those colors of fire and an emergency, I that was the only thing I thought of. Otherwise, I just noticed that Councillor Peterson's name may have been spelt wrong on the summer camp
We
thing.
didn't. We thank you for the feedback on the color, and we intentionally spelt that wrong, so as not to imply that Councillor Peterson was coming. Does it say Councillor?
No.
Good, okay. And, because we haven't asked her yet. Okay. This might be another D. Peterson.
Yeah, okay, Eddie, okay, well, that's good then. Well, thank you very much, Chief West.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Trent, for presenting, but also thank you to Protective Services for putting these camps on for the kids. I think last year was such a hit. It's great to see it. It's expanded, and it's another example of things for kids to do in Strathmore, especially over the summer, and reasonably priced. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And we couldn't have done it and priced it as we did without the help of Aya and her staff. And this will just continue to get better as collaboration continues to be the norm and not a new phenomenon that in Community Protective Services. We're very excited. I've got members that are taking time off of their primary jobs to be part of the camps, and
That's great. That's really great.
Very happy.
And that's much appreciated, too. Thank you very much.
Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Director, I was talking to some emergency care physicians, and that's why I mentioned the stars. I didn't mean to spring that on you. It was just recent. But they were saying, wouldn't it be so cool if we weren't busy? Because they had heard about it. They approached me. They were talking to me about it. We heard about this camp, this unique camp. And wouldn't it be neat if we could land stars out there?
Oh, yeah.
And so
I was so happy when you put the.
Yeah, I apologize for doing that, but
Yeah.
it was the physicians that thought that the camp idea was phenomenal. And it's unique across the province, I understand, yeah.
It's not consistent anywhere. It is a lot of work, and I'm glad that Deputy Chief Furzer took us down this road, because now I think I hope it becomes an expectation of the community.
Well, while you're here, I just also want to pass on my deepest appreciation for all the work that your volunteers and your people spent on the weekend on Hullabaloo. It was just such a good event and so impressive what you were able to do. It was wonderfully entertaining and so well attended.
It was very well attended. Yeah, there's a very solid group of enthusiastic individuals on the department, but also in Protective Services that the esprit de corps and the camaraderie and the coming together of county,
Rural,
of
yeah.
the whole region is just paying dividends.
It was humbling to walk through that park and see all those people, all those emergency services personnel having given up their weekend.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Trent. And that brings us to 7.5. Oh, sorry, do we need a motion then? Or that's just information? Yeah, we're good. Seniors Property Tax Rebate Program, and Linda Bernicki, welcome this evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So I'm here tonight to discuss the Seniors Property Tax Rebate Policy 5103. Just an update from last week when I was here, the amount budgeted in the 2019 budget for this program is $35,000. So just to clarify from our discussions last week. And if there I'm happy to take any questions, but I'm here tonight to make a recommendation that council approves the seniors property tax rebate policy 5103.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question is this going to be first come, first serve? Once the fund is depleted, it's no more people will be able to access that this year?
So when we figured out the $35,000 for the budget, it was based on an estimate of senior homeowners who would fit the low income bracket. And so that amount was calculated to determine, to ensure that the people that would be eligible for it would be able to apply for the program.
Okay. So in the off chance.
If you're asking me if we use all the $35,000 before November 30th, when the deadline is, I think that's something that we would have to come back to council for, because that's what the amount is budgeted for 2019.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
I'm prepared to move a motion, Your Worship,
Thank you.
as soon as I find it. I move that council approve the seniors property tax rebate policy number 5103.
Thank you for that motion. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Only, Your
Councillor
Worship,
Peterson?
that I would like to offer thanks to both Ms. Bernicki and to Mel Teedy for the amount of work that they did on this, and for just a whole council that understands community need.
Thank you for that. I echo that. I think it's an important step we've done here to help some of our most vulnerable residents in Strathmore, and I think it's a very good project. So no other comments, all in favor? And the motion is carried, and thank you for your presentation, and thank you again for all your efforts on this. 7.6, Council Strategic Priorities 2018 to 2021 update, which is found on page 87 of your agenda. Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is also was handed out to council prior to the meeting. So you have a draft copy of an update to your strategic plan. We're bringing this forward to council to reflect changes that council discussed at their strategic priority session late February. From those discussions, administration has drafted this document, which identifies council's main priority action areas, which remain the same as they were in 2018. However, within the plan, there are some short-term and long-term items that council also identified that they wanted added to the plan. Those include the development of a procurement policy, promotion of park benches, protective services special report, subdivision servicing bylaw, the development of a land acquisition strategy, the establishment of an affordable housing policy, the establishment of youth committee in coordination with the GHSD, or Golden Hills School Division, the development of a public education program, establishment of routine communications with council to provide updated information, as well as an inclusive communities strategy. So administration is bringing this forward to council for approval tonight, and as well as feedback or any amendments that they feel is required. In addition to approval, administration is also seeking a motion from council to approve and amend the 2019 operating budget in the amount of $165,000 to fund some of the amendments made to the priorities.
Thank you for that. So tonight you'll be looking for two separate motions then?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? I know you're shooting through this quickly. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, just in the interest of thinking about council undertaking some new budget monies for a new proposal underway, that wondering if it would be wise to take a little bit of time to think about what we could possibly put over to another year that's in this particular program. It appears very ambitious in light of some of the new initiatives or the priority initiatives that council's undertaking. And I wonder if we could just, would it be disastrous, legislative services, to put this over to our next meeting?
Ask a question. Yeah. Is this not a 3-year?
It is a 3-year.
So it's not,
But there's some short.
it's not 19, it's 20 and 21 as well?
Yes. I just wanted to
It's
have
just
that
that
clear
those,
in my
it's just that there's some in the, there's some in the 2018-19, but I'm prepared to, it's just thinking about it, it's.
Mr. West, did you want to speak to something, or?
If I may. I think actually, and I understand your hesitation and reservations, Councillor Peterson. We might, as opposed to looking at what we can remove from the plan, because we did address some of the key elements that we felt needed to be added to the plan, focusing on the community development page 8 and a couple of things there. We may, at the end of this year, at the next review, look at pushing out a couple of things into 2021 or possibly even 2022 versus removing things from the plan.
Ms. Sawatsky?
Your Worship, as well, administration is planning some budget discussions with council in early June. So perhaps we can take this document to that meeting in June and discuss moving some things around if we have to.
So then those motions can be delayed until that June meeting? No, you need the motion on the budgeted amount that you're requesting, or that's needed. Okay.
Your Worship, I would move that council amend and increase the 2019 operating budget as adopted in December 2018 in the amount of $165,000, with funds to be drawn from the Financial Stabilization Reserve in order to reflect the amendments made to council's priorities in the 2018 to 2021 strategic priorities document.
Thank you very much for that motion. Councillor Peterson, are there any questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried.
Then can we leave the other ones?
No, I'm.
Okay. You got it?
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd also move that council adopt the council's strategic priorities 2018 to 2021 as amended.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on that motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion, opposed? Nope, that motion is carried. Okay, thank you. I got scared there. 7.7, CMRB presentation of member municipal contact statement, the updated schedule, page 88. Ms. Sawatsky, are you speaking to this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is just for information for council. Or members, or sorry, representatives of the town were scheduled to present to the CMRB a presentation in October. That date has now changed to November. It's just to inform you that that date has changed.
Thank you, Ms. Sawatsky. Is it a presentation done by our admin and or our staff?
Your Worship, I do believe it is a presentation made by our representatives on the CMRB.
Okay, thank you.
As in council representatives?
Yes.
Hmm.
And Jim.
No, and Jim.
Your Worship, my understanding is that it would be both a council representative and a staff member.
Interesting. That's news to us, but that's great. We look forward to November.
Okay, you have an extra month.
Yeah, all right, perfect.
Put it in your calendar.
All right, that brings us to committee reports. Reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. We have a written one here that's from 3 different committees that Councillor Sobel is on. Do we have any other committee reports from councillors? Councillor Peterson?
I think I got the Marigold reports here, and the Wademsa report is here? Yeah, there it is. See, you favored council, so look at you. Save some. You did, you favored them.
Oh, I'm sorry I favored Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson, thank you so much for your really, really thorough report that's attached to our agenda. Councillor Bauer.
SOS. Oh, I missed the SOS meeting. Councillor Peterson, would you be able to report? Oh, no, I was gonna do that. I said I would. I said I would. May I defer to the next meeting, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to that report as much as the report we have to do in November. Looking forward to those reports. All right, that brings us to item 9, items for, oh, Councillor Peterson? Oh, I have one too, sorry.
You go first, because mine's in a motion.
Okay, sorry, yeah, we're on urgent business, is that what you're saying?
No. She just told me to do the motion that I had under report.
Oh, okay, I see. But mine's coming under reports as well? Oh, that's where I'm confused. Wow. Okay, if you're at home, I apologize for what you've just seen. Or heard, or witnessed. We have a program, an initiative coming forward as part of our desire to bring Siksika Nation and the town of Strathmore's residents into a much closer understanding and to bring our two cultures closer together. And we're dealing still, I know much time has passed by and there's still a lot of things to come in the court case and in the trial. But I think sometimes what gets forgotten is that the time goes on and the victims' families are still suffering. So what we've created is an initiative where we can, it's an optional thing, but we would reach out to the public for anyone who's interested in getting involved, as well as our counselors and our staff and administration. We have cards here that were, Councillor Peterson, if I could get you to just interject a moment, just on the design of the cards and where they came from.
So this initiative was an idea that was generated by kids who were directly connected to the young man who was murdered, to Christian KJ young man, and also to young people in the Strathmore community. And so they, with the help of a local therapist, psychologist, they wanted to do something concrete for both communities. And so they came up with a really simple idea of creating a postcard that people could communicate their condolences or their thoughts to the friends and family and community of Christian A. Young Man. So with their ideas and with the help of Assist Business Centre, they created a postcard that has an eagle and a bear, a wolf and a bison, the spirit animals of Siksika, and a notation that just says, to the family and friends and all those who love and honor the life of Christian KJ Young Man, and just a little place on the back to send a condolence. So just in our efforts to build a strong, inclusive community, one more step, one simple step, and we've been really fortunate to have support from our mayor and from the council of Siksika and from the administration of our junior high and high school to be participant in this and to oversee it. So we're really grateful, and then of course Mayor Fuel has said that he would promote it among the staff here. So we're really grateful for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that clarification and the explanation. In other words, basically it's just a simple way for us as a community to reach out and if people feel the desire to want to get involved, you would simply sign the back of the postcard and we'll collect them all and we'll make sure they get to the people of Siksika, and especially the families and the friends of them can read through the postcards, and it's just another way to help them with their healing and help bring our communities closer together. So I'll be putting that on my mayor's Facebook page, as well as putting out a little blurb to administration and staff. So feel free to jump in on that, and we'll collect them and make sure they get to the right people.
And just in response to Councillor Corbeil's question, they'll be collected, I think it's June 6th or 7th, and they'll be displayed, they'll be taken to Siksika, to the administration office and to the Christian's mom is the Student Services Director of Education, so will also probably be displayed there and just in places where the people of that community gather. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to,
Your Worship,
oh, Councillor Sobel.
where would people get these cards and where would they drop them off?
Well, I think we could possibly, we've talked about this, we've talked about them either being available at the front desk, or they could also come and see me if they could even stop at the front desk, have me called out. I'd love to meet with them, and I can give them a card directly. And I even kicked around the idea, we talked about having a session one morning where I'd be available in council chambers, and anyone who wanted to drop in could just pick up a card and sign it, and I'd have a little visit. We might have some coffee and treats for them as well. So that'll be coming up in the next little while.
We have a little something in the foyer as well to drop them off?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and I'll talk with Ms. Sawatsky and we'll get that going. Thomas. We'll make sure we have something in place very, very soon. I'm just really, really impressed with the design. It
Yes.
looks amazing.
Yep.
If you'd like to see, have you seen them yet? We have some for you, some lovely parting gifts.
If I could just interject, I also want to say that Assist Business Center went above and beyond and did this for next to nothing.
That's
I really appreciate that community
That's
effort as well.
And that now
Great
brings
show.
us to Councillor Peterson's next point,
Thank you, Your Worship.
which will involve an exciting motion, I believe.
Yeah, well, and so this is just relevant to what we talked about earlier with regards to the walking tour and some work around that. So, Your Worship, I would like council's permission to move this and would move that administration direct our communication department to work with Ms. Rhonda Stockwell, Chair of WDHS, and Mr. Rob Peary, who is a representative of both Communities in Bloom and the Western District Historic Society, to create a poster designed to promote the on-the-spot walking tour app. And if I may speak to the motion, Your Worship? Rob Peary has said that he will connect with all the businesses and locales throughout our community to secure permission to place posters. The app, will let people know that this app is free to download because WDHS has paid for the rights to that. And it's quite unique in terms of apps of this sort. Also, WDHS and Communities in Bloom believes that promoting the walking tour app will bring more people into the downtown, and it is their hope that such support may increase traffic in the downtown, thereby benefiting businesses. CIB and WDHS have wished that I would communicate their appreciation for the significant and ongoing support that the town of Strathmore and the town council of Strathmore has offered, and this is part of their organization's initiative to do their part to promote our community.
Thank you very much. So you do have a motion on the floor, do you not?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
any other comments on that motion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Which brings us to item 9, items directly related to council. I don't believe we have anything. Number 10, bylaws. 11, urgent business. Is there one still coming from you, Councillor Peterson, as far as AUMA? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an AUMA resolution that I'd like to put forward, and this is relevant to the diagnostic imaging that we talked about earlier. And the reason that it is under urgent business, Your Worship, is that our legislative services, ever watchful, noted that the due date is May the 31st, and so we need to put this resolution forward. So I have crafted it, and legislative services assures me that they will fix it after. So, whereas, number one, whereas communities outside the 100-kilometer radius of major Alberta cities are not allowed certain medical imaging or interventional radiology, which negatively impacts some communities, and whereas the current standards of diagnostic medical imaging guidelines are outdated and technology has now advanced to the point that medical imaging can be done with ease from any place where reliable technology can be accessed, and whereas the lack of such resources causes significant stress to rural and suburban populations whose members must expend great amounts of time and effort to travel to cities to access diagnostic imaging and interventional radiology, and whereas communities such as ours must utilize significant amounts of funding for ambulance and other medical transport such as handybus. Be it therefore resolved that AUMA lobby the Government of Alberta to urge the College of Physicians and Surgeons to change their current practice to allow communities within the 100-kilometer radius of Alberta major cities to install diagnostic imaging and/or interventional radiology as they determine it to be useful, requisite, or fundamental to serving the needs of their respective communities.
Thank you very much. We have that motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your efforts on that, and thank you to all of council who have been involved in the meetings and the discussions with the various doctors involved as far as the potential for bringing diagnostic imaging to our community. It's definitely a much-needed thing. Item 12, questions between councillors and council statements. Nope. Councillor Peterson.
I wish to tell Councillor Bauer she's out of order because she keeps texting me and then complaining because my phone is burping.
Councillor Bauer, did you have a response, or did you have something else you wanted to bring up?
No, I'm not going to talk about Councillor Peterson's burping of her phone. What I would like to address, though, is something very serious, and that's the really hard work that administration and council did on passing, going to AUMA this year and asking for assistance from the municipal government in terms of helping our residents with their costs associated with homodialysis. Did I say that right?
Home hemodialysis.
Home hemodialysis. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. What I infer from all of this is that the process really did work. And we have people, members of our community now, that not all of their expenses are being fully covered, but a part of their expenses are being covered. And this just goes to show that a small community like Strathmore can really make a big difference in our province if we rally together. And so I thank Councillor Montgomery for making that resolution at AUMA, and I thank Councillor Peterson and Councillor Sobel for working with the gentleman that was involved, and then Jennifer Sawatsky. I'd also like to say thank you for helping to wordsmith that and do all the homework.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bauer, and to those councillors and Jennifer, very much appreciated. Your efforts have gone a long way as far as making some headway for our patients or for our residents who need home hemodialysis. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. That's good. Item 13, administrative inquiries. Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 3 administrative inquiries this evening. The first is from Councillor Corbeil in regards to advertising at our facilities. It reads, would we benefit from creating an agreement or contract with the associations that rent our facilities in regards to advertising? I am thinking in the direction of any advertising the association signs up. A portion of the money brought in can go to that association. And then 2 from Councillor Montgomery. The first reads, please report on the cost differential of the garbage removal service prior to and after the implementation of the waste cart programs, including but not limited to any additional indirect costs such as repair, replacement, and new cart installation, labor, and materials, etc. And also, I would also like to find out how the first test of the new CORA policy has gone. Please report on what processes were used to determine business support for the CORA and what, if any, changes are suggested for the policy. And for clarification, CORA is the road closure policy.
Thank you very much for that. And there are no more items on the public part of the agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to go in camera to deal with one final one. Councillor Corbeil.
I move we go in camera.
Thank you. We have a motion to go in camera from Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Motion is carried, and we're going in camera at 9:06.